Hello and welcome to Edukemy's YouTube channel. My name is Harsh Singh and in this video we shall discuss the current affairs and gazette for today, 1st of April 2022. Welcome Netra, Kriti, Amlan, welcome all of you, Ashish and Bhabani. Welcome to all of you, Asim, welcome back. We also have today Hima, welcome. And Kim, welcome and happy birthday to you. Many happy returns of the day. Hope this day and the year coming, it brings only joy and wonders to your life. Meanwhile, there is a wonder that I have for you all here, and that is mixed news. The news states very clearly that because of Omicron conditions, there could possibly a fourth wave. I hope you know that. And UPSC in this regard has decided that the June 3 examination, June 5 examination that might get that could get preponed. Now this is a situation where you have got 2 months, right? If the exam was to be held on July 5th, you got 2 months, but then if it is getting preponed, what could you do then? What is the impact? That's the problem that we have to deal with right now, and that is the most urgent thing that you must address, right? And meanwhile, this is where I'd like to update that today is 1st of April. So this day is very much relevant to Kim and to a lot of us because it is April Fool's Day. So please, there is nothing, no changes happening. Please remember, UPSC has got a fixed calendar, and unless and until there are extreme situations, there is no change in the calendar. So please do not be under the expectations that the exam could get postponed or preponed. The exam will happen on the set date. The calendars are decided before time. It was only a small prank that I wanted to play with you people. April Fool's Day to everybody else. Good evening. There is no chance here. It's going to be held on the same date as declared. So nothing to worry. There's nothing about this. COVID wave. Yes, that is true. That COVID fourth wave, they have been, some researches by IITN saying that the COVID might strike us again in the month of July and may result for around 3 to 4 months. That's absolutely true. But then these it's not a complete understanding and awareness and analysis, because the government has only relaxed the norms further. The no mask in the vehicles and the no mask in the public also. Instructions have been released for all this. So there's nothing to worry. You must prepare full-fledgedly for all the time. Hi Vivek, good evening. Okay. So there is nothing about it. Get back to it, right? See, COVID has struck China, and that is absolutely true. China, South Korea. Now this is academics that we are speaking right now. China and South Korea, Hong Kong, all these places, they have been struck with COVID, right? South Korea and then Hong Kong as a part of China has been struck with COVID, and really bad. China has had a zero tolerance policy towards COVID, zero tolerance. So if they were, now I am speaking academics, so this is worth noting if you would like to. Now, if there are tourists incoming, there is a mandatory quarantine for them. If people are not only symptomatic but asymptomatic, they have been in touch with those people who got COVID, they also have to mandatorily get inside the hospital and quarantine. Hospital, not at home. And if there are places where there are increased cases or random spurt of cases, those places also are under lockdowns. This is China's zero COVID policy. And it is so because China has been able to, see, this is what we know through Chinese media, Chinese government. China has been able to curtail COVID to a very extreme number. See, the number of COVID cases that have happened around the whole world are 50 crore. These are the recorded number of cases. And you know the number of cases that have been recorded in China? This is around 1.5-2 lakh cases. Around just these many. A couple of lakh cases out of 50 crore cases around the whole world. India has reported 4 crore cases. Reported. They must be quite enormous. So countries like China and places like South Korea, they have not been largely exposed to many variants of COVID, especially the Omicron variant. Now Hong Kong is going through a very disastrous situation where many of the elder persons who are not vaccinated, they are being brought to hospital, and only during the emergency times hospitals are all full of people. Omicron variant is the one which has struck many of these places. So this is what these places are going through, and elderly people above the age of 80, they are once vaccinated, or they don't have the booster vaccine dose. Now see, the booster vaccine dose of the Chinese vaccine, that is a different story altogether. There, if you don't take the booster dose, your immunity, it starts to drop, right? So booster dose is mandatory. It's very much advisable in Chinese for Chinese nationals who are being injected their national vaccinations. So that is the case there. But could it affect India? Possibly no, right? So this is it. Okay, Amlan knows all. It is Amlan who told me to make this as a joke, right? So this is the first one. All right, there was a good question yesterday asked to me that was about the data accessibility policy, and I would like to put the question and the reply that I have posed to this question as well. Sir, how other countries are dealing with the data accessibility? See, data accessibility has become a problem because the government wants to monetize it, because we don't know how to mix the personal and non-personal data, if it can be retrieved again or not. So there are irreversible changes that could happen, right? For example, we don't even know we have not even measured what is the time we spend on phones, right? It was not so 10 years back. It was not so 20 years back at all, right? Phone was only a thing of necessity. But now phone is not only about luxury, it is also about conveniences. Everything is becoming digital. So this is an irreplaceable change that has happened to our lives, right? Just like traveling by aircraft, something that is connected the whole world, right? Similarly, converting everything to digital has also got these kind of revelations, revealing and transforming effects. So this is the fourth industrial revolution that I'm speaking of. Fourth industrial revolution, right? You would never want to walk when you can drive a car, or when you can have a cycle. A wheel itself was an invention, right? A great invention. So the question was, in this case, how are the other countries dealing with it? What are the most developed countries doing? So most developed stance has been taken by European Union, which released its general data protection regime policy in 2016-17. And a part of that policy, another segment of the policy was released for non-personal data, both of it. So they said in European Union, the 5-6 point that I have written here is all about it. One of the point mentions very clearly that the non-personal data exchange will not be localized. All the countries, all the institutions will be allowed to partake and share the data with themselves. In fact, in European countries, the business owners will start to share data with government. Here we are speaking of government owning the data and sharing it with businesses. B2G, business to government transactions, because government not only records data there are a lot of businesses recording data, tourism data, people moving from one country to the other data, right? All of them can be used for better governance, right? Not only this, the data access cannot be limited to people. Data portability from one device to the other. No vendor lock-in. The vendor who has got access to data, they cannot lock in the data. It has to be made accessible. No localization. Free movement, and mixed data sets to be used. Mixed data sets. That means non-personal data and personal data could be mixed together to create non-personal data, and then they could be used. So these are the best standards that have been used globally. Monetization is what India is doing. All right. Okay. Let's move back to what do we have on today's session. Today we have AFSPA controlled areas which have been reduced. So we'll quickly understand this update. Coral bleaching. We'll understand what specific is happening in Australia here this time. We have covered this, previously, but then some more details about it. And then Charak Shapath. We'll understand this as well. This day in history, RBI coming into existence. Featured news on additive manufacturing. We have covered in an update, but we'll understand the whole strategy of additive manufacturing in this update. Image of the day is on world's first single tower suspension bridge in China. And terms and concepts, IONS, AFSPA, faster from Supreme Court, and Maritime Rescue Coordination Center. Editorials that we have, one is on the new bill introduced for taking in more biometric details. The second one is on digital advertisements, right? If you remember the Shah Rukh Khan ad for not just Cadbury ad, right? We'll discuss that. And the third one is on India and Sri Lanka relationship. Today's case is on a lady, and she has broken stereotypes by being one of the ladies at cremation centers, helping in cremations, right? So let's start this discussion. Hi Rajeshwari, welcome back. Long time. All right. So the first update is from AFSPA controlled areas which have been reduced, right? Which are the areas and which have been reduced? Let's understand this. See, AFSPA Armed Forces Special Powers Act is applicable to those areas which have been declared disturbed areas by the central government. And this act came in force in the year 1958, right, after there were a lot of insurgency movements in the northeast in Nagaland, when people wanted to cut away and create a greater Nagaland, and they wanted to become more autonomous for themselves. The government said that we must pass an act with the help of which we are able to curb the insurgencies, the armed protest, right? So through this, what happens is that the state government, the governor of the state, they pass a report saying that the area is disturbed, and this is how the central government, in consonance with the state government, they impose the Armed Forces Special Powers Act. With the help of this act, the the armed forces are deployed in those areas, those districts, those police stations, or the whole region, a part of the state or the whole state, and they get some special powers. Armed Forces Special Powers Act. They get overriding powers more than the district administration. I will discuss what is the how they handshake and what are the issues. I'll discuss that as well. But largely they get overriding powers than the district administration. And what are these powers? They can search any premises without the warrant. They can arrest a person without the warrant. They can even kill. They can even shoot to the level that they can kill the person if they find something suspicious about them, and if the person is not cooperating, and they will not be prosecuted in the court of law. These have been parts of the Armed Forces Special Powers Act. This act was introduced in the northeast, first in Nagaland, and then in various other states, for example, Mizoram, Manipur, Arunachal Pradesh, and Assam, and other places like Tripura, a lot of states in the northeast, and then it was also introduced in Jammu and Kashmir in 1980s, right? So now, since there is a lot of peace process happening in northeast, for example, see, why was it introduced in Mizoram and other places and Manipur? They were people with the same objective of Nagaland, or autonomy of Nagaland, residing in other states also. So Manipur, that is why imposed there in some places in Manipur. Mizoram, people again protested. The causes at all the places were slightly different, but interrelated also. The administration was not good in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, and people protested. They felt autonomy was far better for them, right? Mizoram went through a phase of famine in 1950s, and they were not taken care of very well. So people protested against the government, right? And then people wanted more autonomy in insurgency happened. So the causes could be related or different, but then largely these states were affected, and there were alleged atrocities against the armed forces, and they were not dragged to the court of law. So because of all this, there were further more insurgencies happening against the locals or against the government forces, right, in the northeast. But then slowly and steadily peace process started to happen, right? So earlier there was an institution called as Naga National Council, right? And then later on it broke off, and there were factions, NSCN, and many factions of Naga National Peace Process. They started to interact well with the government. So the government feels that there is need to remove the AFSPA from many places. So now the new notification has come, and it says that some of the places in Assam, some of the places in Nagaland, and some places in Manipur, their AFSPA will be removed. Not all the places, but some of the places. So restriction in the places where AFSPA is applicable. Have a look at this image. The dark blue indicates the places where AFSPA is applicable right now, and the light pink indicates those areas where AFSPA has been removed. All right. So this is it, right? The government and the courts have started to now they have become more rigorous on taking up cases on extrajudicial killings and fake encounters. So this is why people have also become happier, right? A couple of updates about this is Konyak tribes. We have discussed Konyak tribes, and a few months back, if you remember, there was an attack in Nagaland in Mon district, right? And this is where innocent people of Konyak tribe were killed by the armed forces, 14 of them, and 7 of them killed initially, and then because it was felt that they were a part of the insurgents. And the confusion is absolutely right, because some of the insurgents are also from Konyak tribes, and that was the confusion. They were killed, and then there was the local people went and attacked the armed forces. Some army persons also got killed, and then there was a retaliation, and then some more people got killed, and then there was an investigation. What happened? And after that, the government says that we will definitely reduce the armed forces here. That is what it is. But then the armed forces present in the Mon district has not been reduced. So this is one update. Do remember the tribe's name, Konyak tribe, the headhunters. These tribes have existed in Nagaland, and the tribes in Naga, they fight for supremacy over each other. They fight locally as well, and Konyak tribes. All right, important. Now, one important thing: how the armed forces must interact with the civil government in that in the locality. That's important. So, whenever the armed forces personnel is about to fire, the first thing is that they must warn anywhere. Nobody has got the right to kill. Nobody can be trigger happy. Right, and whenever they, even if they have to shoot, they have to shoot below the knee. They are standing instructions for everybody, right? So while the act gives power to security forces to open fire, this cannot be done without prior warning given to the suspect. It says that after apprehension of the suspect, after the suspect is taken in custody, they have to be handed over to the civil administration within 24 hours. Within 24 hours, they have to be handed over. Security were handed over within the 24 hours. It says the armed forces must act in cooperation with the district administration and not as an independent body. See, so DM is overall in charge, but then see, it doesn't happen. The de facto rule is something else. All right, and we have had Iram Sharmila. She has been protesting since the year 2000, and this is the world's largest protest by being on hunger strike. 16 years of hunger strike, and in 2016 she gave up her hunger strike. In fact, death, if one wants to commit suicide by a hunger strike, this is not legally allowed, no? So right now suicide is an offense. It was an offense. So every time she would be on hunger and then her condition would deteriorate, the government would put her under supervision in hospitals and ensure that through nasal passages and injections she survives. Right, so Iram Sharmila. All right, moving ahead to the second update. Questions, please keep putting them down. Most welcome. Hima says, sir, day before yesterday, Ministry of Environment has decided to roll back the ban on import of plastic waste, PET bottles, giving reasons of loss bore by waste recycling companies. Oh. So plastics can be imported for recycling purposes. That's what, no? See, and so whenever you relate and use like this, it's interesting that you have put it here. The recycling component that must only upcycle the product. I have repeatedly said this part, upcycling of product. If India has the technology, well and good, keep importing them, right? But if you are degrading or downloading the cycled product, then the utility of that product gets reduced further. The element of pollution, the element of unsustainability in that product increases further. So India must, so you could as well criticize here. You could as well criticize the government on this and say that upskilling is the way to go, upcycling of the product, not downcycling, right? Or at least letting the quality remain same. I remember having seen the quality of paper that I have right now in front of me. This is good quality paper, but then when you recycle a paper like this, the color changes, it fades away, the quality is very poor. Similarly, it goes for plastic as well. We very well know what does a recycled plastic look like and what is the polythene which is not recycled looks like. So you could definitely question there. Vivek says, what is the difference between insurgency and terrorism? Let me look this up and get back to you. What do you say, Vivek? But it's a very good question. I wouldn't want to, do something by fluke right now. I'd like to get into it and then get back to you on this. All right. Thank you, Vivek, for asking this. Moving ahead, the second update is on. So this is the update right here. The second update is on coral bleaching. See, coral bleaching is happening in Great Barrier Reef, and we had shown the images previously. But then imagine the bleaching happening in times when the ocean water is supposed to be cool. This is the El Nino times where the Southeast Asian coast and the Australian coast should be cool. It is actually getting cooler, but even then coral bleaching is happening, and that is the mark of concern. That is what is in the news. Coral of the Great Barrier Reef is currently going through another mass bleaching event, right? So let us understand what are these mass bleaching events. Although the Great Barrier Reef has been suffering its fourth mass bleaching since 2016, it is for the first time that they are bleaching under cold conditions of natural weather pattern. Just a bit. Just a bit. All right. So, when you look at the Australian coast, see the phenomena of El Nino. What is El Nino? El Nino is the phenomena where there is abnormal, usual conditions is such that this is Southeast Asia and Australia region, and I've just drawn the equator here. And usually, since this area has got landmass, just telling you the concept of El Nino once, this area has got increased presence of landmass here. The area here goes through intense heating, and when intense heating happens, there are cloud formations, and then there is rainfall happening, and this cools the area. And because of this, the effect on Indian side is that the attraction to the southwest monsoon, southeast monsoon is less, because the area becomes cool, and the whole cycle changes. The Walker cycle changes, the ocean current, a lot of things change around the area, and this area becomes cool. This is the El Nino effect. And in La Nina, so this is the El Nino times when this area becomes a little more cool. Absolutely. Oh, am I wrong here? No, absolutely. But during the times when the conditions are different, when there is supposed to be colder conditions around the Australian coast, right? The corals are getting bleached, right? So, giving you some examples of how coral bleaching happens. See, there are different types of corals, right? Coral bleaching can happen dependent on the extent of the temperature rise. This is one, extent of temperature rise. Another reason for coral bleaching is the number of times coral bleaching has happened. The times, there are times when coral bleaching happens, and the zooxanthellae comes back, and then it happens again, and then it comes back. If the bleaching has happened enough number of times within a few number of years, then onwards the coral bleaching phenomena could be even permanent. The bleaching also depends on the type of coral species. For example, the acropola corals, these corals in which you see enough number of branches, they grow very fast, but they are not very sustainable, right? If they find changes in temperature, the zooxanthellae would exit out of this, right? And therefore, they are more sensitive to coral bleaches. On the other hand, porites, they grow slow, they are more sustainable, and therefore they are less impacted by sudden temperature changes, right? So these are the two things. One more thing that one must note is that coral bleaching happens through indications, fluorescent color. So at the edge of the corals, if you see fluorescent color, these bright colors happening, this is an indicator of stress of the corals. They are getting stressed. This is an indicator of it. So whenever there is temperature rise, whenever there is immense change in salinity, whenever there are other reasons for coral bleaching, for example, the leading cause of coral bleaching is climate change, absolutely, warming planet, and water temperature change, say 1-2 degrees Celsius will impact. I will explain further about this. But there are other reasons, for example, extremely low tides, being exposed to a lot of sun radiations, ultraviolet radiations, pollution, or too much sunlight. All these are the factors. So when too much radiation happens, the corals also try to protect themselves through these fluorescent colors, right, at the edges. So if water remains too warm for too long, this is one, corals eventually die. This is one reason, right? If there are extreme radiations, if they are exposed above the sea level for a lot of time, these are the reasons. Corals can use fluorescent pigments to shield themselves from excessive ultraviolet radiations. So this is an indicator that the coral is under stress. See, the under stress level conditions for acropora corals and porites coral would be different, right? But then if the temperature rise is above 8 degrees Celsius, the loss may be almost permanent. If the temperature rise of oceans is above 4 degrees Celsius, then you would find indications of stress, far more indications of stress. At 1-2 degrees Celsius rise, the indications are not as strong. So in Australian coast, you would see that the temperatures are getting around 30-31 degrees Celsius, but then the conditions during these times are still enough to have mass level coral bleaching, right? The full reef recovery requires no bleaching events or other disturbances in the years that follow, right? If bleaching has happened once, the full recovery needs that bleaching does not happen immediately, so that the zooxanthellae, the algae, zooxanthellae, see, in corals, they are polyps and they are zooxanthellae, right? So they both have got their own functions here, and they also provide, polyps also provide color to this, right? So algae here provides the food and the animals survive here, right? They live in a symbiotic relationship. But then if once evicted, the animals or the plants that create food, if they are evicted, the algae that create food, if they are evicted from here, they can come back provided there is no next cycle of bleaching, no next cycle of temperature rise. But then if it happens again and again, 3-4 times, and then this would be a permanent activity. And you've seen in the news itself, this has happened for the 4th time since 2016. So imagine this is called as mass level of coral bleaching that is happening, okay? Scientists measure the heat stress on corals using a metric called as degree heating weeks. Degree heating weeks, right? If 1 degree heating weeks happens, that means temperature at a given location is more than 1 degree Celsius over the historical highs for a week. So for 1 week, the temperature is over 1 degree Celsius over the historical high temperature. Imagine this. And when it is 2 degrees Celsius, the temperature is 2 degrees more than the historical highs, right? So coral polyps and zooxanthellae, they survive in symbiotic relationship with each other. Zooxanthellae creates food, the algae, and coral polyps also live alongside. But then when the plant that provides food and the animal that is saving it right there, if they get evicted out of their coral reefs, the homes, it takes a while for them to come back. All right, so this is the update. And there are other symbiotic relationships as well. Quite a few symbiotic relationships happening, quite a few. All right, so this is the update. Stages of coral bleaching: healthy coral, coral under stress, bleached corals, and then coral death. Bleaching does not necessarily indicate the death, but then they would die eventually when the symbiotic relationship does not exist, right? Early detection of stress is important. Stronger policies, stakeholder approach, people must be empowered. That is what is required. The third update is on Hippocratic oath to Charak Shapath. See, there have been different news. I have been looking at it. At times, government has clarified that they wouldn't replace Hippocratic oath with Charak Shapath. And on the other hand, I have seen that the government is going to evolve some modified version of Charak Shapath based on Hippocratic oath as well. Right. So, what are these? Let's understand that and what is the intention here. The National Medical Commission, right? It says that India is Atmanirbhar. So, why do we have Hippocratic oath? Why not Charak Shapath? So a quick background to these two important gentlemen in the field of medical sciences. The father of modern medicine, Hippocrates, has been actually the founder of modern medicine, right? So they have not only found allopathy, they have also found homeopathy, and they have found it 2700 years back way in Greece, right? Hippocrates, right? And when you see these marks in doctors' vehicles, if you see these marks, this mark was actually something that existed from those times. So this indicates of two things: the stick that Hippocrates would carry, this wand. It is said that these are the wand which have been brought by the Greek god Hermes, right? Wand, magic wand, something like that. And there are two snakes on the other sides, and he would prepare medications with the help of the snake venom, right? And that was the birth of homeopathy. Loha hi lohe ko katta hai. Diamond beats diamond, diamond cuts diamonds, right? It is the venom which cuts poison. So this was homeopathy, and he also discovered what is called as allopathy, father of modern medicine, Hippocrates. So that is the reason that we take oath on his name. Doctors, vehicles, and everywhere, this is the symbol of a doctor, right? A modern doctor. So Hippocrates' oath is largely on, see, this is the oath. It's largely on to treat the ill to the best of one's ability, to preserve patients' privacy, and to pass on the secrets of medicine to the next generation, right? So these are, and there are so on and so forth. There are quite a few of this, and this is what people, the doctors, take their oath as. But then it has been recommended by National Medical Commission that they would switch to the Charak oath, which is of similar kind, similar nature, but some changes, very cosmetic changes and names, right? Those things. So Charak Shapath. Three important changes which have been introduced are: one, Charak Shapath. The second one is Yoga Foundation course, a 12-day foundation course for the students who are joining medical field. They would be given yoga courses, and in this yoga course, the eventual date of end this course, this would coincide with 21st of June, International Yoga Day. Okay, well and good. And the third one is community health training. Right now, the medical students, they do community health training after 4 years of academic completion, right? 5th year, and they go to rural hospitals, rural places, and they get some training, community health training. Now, first year onwards only, they will be subjected to the community health training. These are recommendations passed on by National Medical Commission, and they would also be given some more. There has been some change in syllabus. According to virology and microbiology, there will be more courses introduced around this because of the pandemic that has spread around the world, right? Now, images that you see here are of Charak and Sushruth. Sushruth said to be one of the first surgeons, right? So both of them present in before Christ time. Sushruth wrote Sushruth Samhita, right? A composition of all the problems and solutions that they could find. Sushruth. And Charak Samhita was also written. Both the people existing in 300 and 100 BC, around these times. Charak Samhita, and he also helped in finding medicine. See, he's grinding some medicine, right? So a founder of medicines in Ayurveda. All right. So these are the updates here. Okay. Charak Samhita urges students to treat the best of ability and judgment. Focus on cure when examining a patient and maintain privacy regarding patient's families. So what was different here? Hippocrates' oath calls upon students to practice with conscience and dignity, but patients' health and respect their privacy. Similar, all right. So modified Maharshi Charak Shapath has been recommended when a candidate is introduced to medical education, 10 or 12-day yoga foundation course, and many people residing in rural areas, 65% of the population. So go there and start community training first year onwards, right? So both of them covered right here. Okay. This day in history, to RBI coming to existence in the year 1935. Okay, April 1. Okay, so RBI's chief duty, maintain plus minus 4 plus minus 2. That's the formula, right? Inflation levels, growth, government's business, controlling of management of inflation, RBI's business. See, you should remember when or year RBI was formed, the year UPSC was formed, the year Supreme Court was formed, the year Election Commission was formed. These are very important bodies. UPSC takes in the important constitutional position recruitments. RBI, maintenance of monetary policy of the government. Supreme Court, a protector of the constitution. Election Commission maintains the code of elections, right? One of the most important democratic festivals in the country is the festival of election itself. So can you people tell me when were these institutions formed? RBI came to power in the year 1935. All right. Supreme Court came into existence in the year Federal Court 1937. If I'm wrong, please put down your remarks. Election Commission the year 1950. And UPSC, I think that I leave up to you. All right. So you should just inquire into this, be inquisitive about this. National Strategy for Additive Manufacturing. We will understand this in the feature news for today. What has been the policy of the government? What has been the presence around the world? What is the scope? See, right taken from the report itself, the government's policy. So we'll understand this in the feature news today. Okay. Immediately after this, the second video. World's first single tar suspension bridge. One of the important marvels, technological marvels, is having a bridge suspended on only one pillar, one single tar suspension bridge in China, right? So this is a world record of having the lengthiest suspension bridge. See, and with one tar. We have had suspension bridges. I would be happy to say I have been to this bridge, the Golden Gate in San Francisco, and see, suspended. No, it's all flying, and when there are very fast, there's a bay area, and when there are very fast moving winds, right? The waves would ensure that the bridge also, since it is suspended, it would move, right? So suspended bridge, but then it has got two columns supporting the bridge, is it not? Absolutely. And how many of you have gone to Lakshman Jhula? See, two supports here, but then this is the marvel here, only one support, engineering marvel from China, Chinese product, but then looks to be durable in quality. We'll find out. Okay, so that's the beautiful update. Terms and concepts. Indian Ocean Naval Symposium. A naval symposium, a meeting of the navies and conducting of exercises at Goa, right? The last one that they held, an important one was, anybody? And the eastern coast, Visakhapatnam, what was the name? They called navies of around 30 plus countries. What was the name of that naval exercise? Anybody? I would want you to write that name, right? So what is the idea? Humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. See, they mention that this has got to be HADR, but then what they actually do is collaborate, information gathering, all of it, information. If they can collaborate on information gathering of the weather conditions, why cannot they gather information on the terrorist activities or any rogue naval vessel? They can do that as well. When they use satellite forces, they would use satellite for all the things, no? All together. So they start coordinating, they start organizing their movements together. So countries, South Asian countries, West Asian, East African, South Asian, Australian littorals with China, Germany, Italy, Japan, Madagascar, Netherlands, Russia, Spain. Oh my God. So good. India is trying to gain leadership of the Indian Ocean region, right? So whenever we speak of ocean, you should remember one thing. See, there is something called as deep ocean mission. We have covered it. And this is the policy of the government. This is about the deep ocean and what's beneath the ocean, right? So the climate, how climate gets influenced, how tourism gets influenced, what is the presence of minerals below the earth, right? At the ocean floor, how to retrieve them, right? So there are 6 components of deep ocean mission of India. You should look it up on YouTube, Deep Ocean Edukemy, or this is also on Google. If you find, just type deep ocean. So this is on deep ocean. But what about venturing out into the ocean surfaces in the deeper waters? What about them? This is where we have to start looking into all these aspects: humanitarian assistance and disaster relief, right? Openness of seas, right? Then counter-terrorism. See, openness of seas is different from counter-terrorism, right? And Captain Philip, what was that? Counter-terrorism and what attacks? Piracy attacks, right? Illegal, unwanted and unregulated and under, what is that? IUU fishing, right? So there are 5-6 components in the shallow water, applications also at the surface level. Not shallow water, deep water at the surface level. You should remember all of them. And this is what all of these symposiums want to conduct. Okay. AFSPA. All right. So what's the update here? Update is about mostly about film stars, but then it relates to diseases. I've collated all the 3 that we covered lately. One was obstructive sleep apnea. I remember having covered this. So when around the neck region, when the person is not able to take in gas of breathe, they're not able to sleep properly, because suddenly when they sleep and then because of excessive presence of fat at these places, the person is not able to breathe, and in between their sleep they suddenly get up, right? This is an involuntary action by the body to ensure that the person keeps breathing. So Bapi Lahiri was suffering from this disease, passed away. Then yesterday or day before we covered alopecia erythra. No, we didn't cover this. But I just updated. So she's the wife of Bruce Willis, wife of Will Smith, and she's going through this condition, alopecia areata, where there is some autoimmune dysfunction because of which people lose hair, or maybe in small patches or the whole head, right? So this could happen, this could be reversible, this could be irreversible, either of them. And now Bruce Willis has been detected with the aphasia. What is this? So this is a condition in which the person's is not able to communicate things properly, although the brain has it in their mind, but then they wouldn't be able to speak or communicate it in that manner. They might miss out words, they might miss out sentences, they might miss out in communicating their thoughts properly in actions. And as an actor, he would not be able to do this. Anybody would not be able to participate. So because of aphasia, he has declared that he wouldn't participate in movie creations. So die hard. So he's going to live doing something else now, right? Has recently been diagnosed with aphasia, medical condition that affects person's ability to speak, write and understand a language. So they would miss out on words in their sentences or come up with incorrect words, resulting in them speaking gibberish, right? So ability to speak, write and understand a language, this is what, so you should remember the names, right? What is this condition about? Right? So yahi to hype hota hai. Faster. What is faster? Faster stands for fast and secure transmission of electronic records. What happens is when Supreme Court passes the judgment, it passes on the judgment for people to obey it, for the executive to obey the order, police services to obey the order, and when it takes a while for the police to get this judgment, this delays the process, right? So people who are under trial, people who need to be apprehended, people who need to be released from the prison, this always takes a while, because the physical paper, it takes a while for them to reach the destination. And therefore, through fast and secure transmission of electronic records, faster, Supreme Court says that the documents will be passed on through a click of the gadget, and you would be liable to execute the action. So release of a prisoner from the under trial prisoner, or giving any orders from the Supreme Court. So this is what faster stands for. Bail orders, stay orders, interim orders, all of them will be handled with the help of faster. All right. So there will be no delay in release of prisoners, physical orders, and IC has developed this. Very good work. This is where I asked you the question, what about automation? There is a level of automation which is being envisaged at the Supreme Court, artificial intelligence to aid Supreme Courts and other courts processes. It is good to collate the data and make it all present online. That is agreeable. But then how much should the jurisdiction be dependent on artificial intelligence? If some court has given High Court has given a ruling, does the other court need to mandatorily follow what the High Court ruling has with the help of artificial intelligence? Not necessary, because the circumstances, the condition, the age of the person who has committed the crime, the victim, the impact, all of them are different in unique cases, right? So therefore, we can't, as of now, design a system which is completely artificially intelligent and which is able to solve the problems. There's an ethical problem here, right? There are multiple challenges to it. We'll come up with this. That is why I posed a question here. Maritime Rescue Coordination Center, India and Sri Lanka signed MOU to create Maritime Rescue Coordination Center. All right. So emergencies, environmental disasters, this is what they are coming up with right now, coordinated with Navy or Coast Guard. See, I had updated two things about India and Sri Lanka partnership about Navy. So first is creation of a marine jetty, right? Jetty, the place where boats can land, and this would not be associated with the land, this would be completely in marine area. And the second is giving them quite a couple of vessels for Sri Lanka to administer its coastline, right? These are the two updates. Let me move on to the editorial section where I'll discuss Sri Lanka right now, and that's where I'll explain what's with China, what's the issue with China. All right. Thank you for helping out. Illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing. Deep ocean video, I will provide the link on the comment section itself. So please do check it after the videos are complete. I'll put this here. Million exercise. Thank you, Visakhapatnam, Ashish, Kriti, Netra, Amlan, Hima. Good enough. Okay, 1926 UPSC. Very good. Kanupriya, welcome. Kriti says she's been there. She's been to Rishikesh. Okay, great. Me too. Okay. Amlan says El Nino more dryness in Indonesia and Australia, and weak monsoons. La Nina is vice versa. Yes, not only dryness, but speak about in the terms of coolness or warmth, right? For example, when El Nino happens over the Indian Ocean region, the rainfall is ought to be less. El Nino rainfall is ought to be less. But when La Nina happens, the conditions are abnormally high. The normal conditions are abnormally high. It results, so do remember this, in La Nina conditions on Indian Ocean region, the rainfall ought to be low. But then in El Nino conditions, right? But in La Nina conditions, the rainfall could be distributed to either ways. It could be high or it could be low, both of it. Now, if you don't know this, then you got to do a little research on this. While in La Nina conditions, the rainfall could go either ways, high and low. If you know this concept, let me know in the comment section by just writing a yes, I'll understand. All right, this editorial talks about Sri Lanka and our interest. See, India and Sri Lanka have had renewed partnerships, right, all the time, and yet China is becoming a participant to it. This editorial speaks about the summary of reasons from Live Mint. I read it, and then this is what I created out of it. The reasons which are responsible for the crisis in Sri Lanka. So, very, very revealing. Some of the things are really beautifully mentioned. So, first thing is Sri Lanka is going through currency swap agreements with Bangladesh, with China, with India. In currency swaps, there are multiple ways in which currency can be swapped. One is taking loans in dollars and repaying back in Sri Lankan currency. The second one is, one could be deferring the payments or doing payments that were meant to be done in dollars in the local currencies, or applying Indian rupee and Sri Lankan rupee for exchanges, no dollars at all, right? So currency swap in multiple ways could be applied. This is what is Sri Lanka doing right now. We've known the crisis in Sri Lanka, but what are the causes? So I've written down all the causes that are mentioned here, and largely all of it covers whatever it is about. So first of them, what are the impacts? Foreign debt over 3-digit figures, right? 120% of GDP is the total debt that they have. Inflation, two digits, not in 2 digits, it is like 20%, right? Current account deficit, again in 2 digit. It's quite, I'm sorry, fiscal deficit in 2 digit, right? India's fiscal deficit is 6.4%, ought to be 6.4%. Current account deficit also increasing because they don't have purchasing power, because they hardly have 1 month of currency remaining for import. Why are they increasing the imports and not being able to export? It is because of COVID situation. Tourism is less, remittances are less, whatever export they had, it has broken off during these times, right? Now, one important, so I'm talking of the reasons why Sri Lanka is going through a crisis like this, right? So one important reason is majoritarian chauvinism. I think the editorial could use a different word, but then of course it is criticizing the majoritarian population here. It says that if the population has a good milieu, if the population has socially cohesive, they would get into economic activities rather than, so for example, Tamilian, persecuted minority, and then the Muslim population again there is low. Although the bombings happened in 2019 and Muslim terror groups claimed for the bombings, but then it led to tourism issues and it again led to persecution of Muslims here. So social cohesion is low, internal cohesion. See, mind you, these are good points for us also, right? We have to have better cohesion in the country. Civil unrest, avoidance of global capital, this is what it resulted into. The global capital in terms of dollars, FDIs, which was pouring in Sri Lanka earlier, it stopped, right? It stopped, and it has stopped since a lot of time. So Sri Lankan civil war, and after that 2019 bombings, tourism also stopped, and after that the government started to spend more. So pura economic system got haywired. The spendings were high because of corona pandemic. They started spending more and incoming were less, right? Incoming FDIs were less, tourism was less, remittances was not coming to the country, and whatever export they used to do, right? Spices, some agricultural product, right? All of that also diminished because of COVID times, right? Loss of tourism. So these are the major impacts, right? They couldn't handle the economic setup. They could not handle how they were increasing the easy money policy, spending easy money policy, and over-reliance on single external agent. So who is that? China. Over-reliance on a single external benefactor. Now, China condition is such. This is the special highlight of this editorial. In fact, I've done some more research to explain you this part. Here, This is the Hambantota port, right? Now the issue with the port like this is that it took quite a lot of money to create this port, and the Chinese way of funding is such that it funds a real estate project, right? It does not fund through financial partnerships. It funds a project and says real estate project, and it says to the government, local government, that you provide me the returns of it, whatever you gain, you provide me the returns of it later on. So Chinese government, and then here's the Sri Lankan government, you give it to me in due course, right? But then in this huge port that was created, the Sri Lankan authorities were running in losses, right? All the time, 2013, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, they were running in losses. They could not repay them back. So what they did was, contrary to the popular belief that China, took over this port because Sri Lanka could not repay, that is not the reality. The reality is that Sri Lanka said that you take over the port, 70% of the stakes of this port was taken by China, and 30% retains with the Sri Lankan, port trust. 30% retains, and for 70%, 99 years of the stake, it was given on lease. This is what was the condition. And in return of this, Chinese port agency gave them $1.2 billion. $1.2 billion in return of taking this port over. So when they gave this amount was not utilized to repay back the Chinese government for creation of this port. This amount was later utilized, and that amount was not much. They were not defaulting on payments. This amount was utilized by the Sri Lankan government to further increase social spendings or reduce its current account deficit. They were importing with this amount. They were into revenue spendings rather than capital creation. Imagine this, or reduction of capital debt. This was a huge mistake by any country. This is what Sri Lanka did. So, यहाँ China को बदनाम कर दिया बेचारे को. But then China has been following this policy at many places. All the countries where there are string of pearls, they will be under similar kind of burden. Why? Because there is social distress in those countries. Why? Because there are economic, they are not economic superpowers, and they don't have that brain. The system is corrupt and it is inefficient, the economic system. Then these countries do not have an exporting potential. They have very meager exporting potential. So they do not earn FDIs. If they do not earn enough FDIs, they will be under similar obligations to be able to give their real estate to China, and then China will fund them somehow. So this is what has happened in this Sri Lankan case. So very typical example, and this is what has resulted into the issue in mismanagement, right? What could India do? This is where the editorial says that India should step in to help Sri Lanka. Now India knows finances, right? Bheem payment, Paytm, all that, everything, financial aggregator. India knows medicine. India very well knows management of agriculture. Cannot we help them? We can actually help them. What we need is statesmanship, right? So China is right now going through one country, two systems, Chinese system. Remember, I had spoken of the donut model. The Chinese are at the top, but it is completely empty inside. So this is the Chinese system model, which must be countered with the help of India. Export spices, tea, help in providing information technology services. Their people can also be trained. India is training their officers, maritime officers, naval officers, police officers, people who are scholars. So we can train them also. India as a good neighbor will reap harvest of an effort like this, right? The second one is moving into an era of advertisement by digital avatars. Oh, great one. This is a beautiful one. I'd like to quickly show you what I'm speaking of through a very small video. This is the Cadbury ad. Have you seen this ad? It was released last year. And this is completely artificial intelligence created, right? So this is the ad. This is not just Cadbury ad, it says. The store mentioned in this ad are a part of thousands of local people. You should read this part. This is not just a Cadbury ad. The store mentioned here in this ad are part of thousands of local stores that Cadbury is promoting this Diwali. Oh, let's see. What are they promoting? How are they promoting? Now here, Shah Rukh Khan is in a visual and he's speaking about any local store and says that you go to this local store and you should be able to purchase these entities. It could be a milk shop, it could be a kirana shop, it could be a shop for medicines. and is speaking the name of the shop. Imagine this. How is this possible? Is he doing that? No, he's not doing that. Cadbury said that all you people need to do is provide some basic details, the pin code, the area where you're from, your name and your shop's name, and we would introduce an ad for you. Now, imagine, to us, what it seems is as if Shah Rukh Khan is speaking about promoting a particular place, a local shop, right? All, I think it was free of cost, I think so. But then the common people get lured thinking that Shah Rukh Khan is promoting this, right? And imagine if film stars, cricketers, people of people in a different social milieu, people in a different gentry, a social class far higher, they start promoting these products to us. What we would do? We would start using them, right? And this is what artificial intelligence is doing. Somehow our rights as consumers, they get twisted. We don't understand if this product actually has been promoted by him or not. So artificial intelligence is the one which is creating these effects. Same voice, same movement of lips, but he is not speaking it. Imagine this. So this is the second editorial that we have circled around, and very interesting. No, moving into an era of advertisements by digital avatars. All right. So this is where I want you to look at the consumer rights. We have covered consumer rights. Absolutely. Pura feature news में धज्जियां उड़ा दी थी consumer rights की, right? So 6-7 rights, and one of the rights is that misleading ads cannot be introduced, and people who are a part of misleading ads, those people who are in position of power, they will be penalized, right? Okay. Consumer trust in the star was sought to be exploited without making sincere effort to verify the quality of the product. Imagine. So we cannot venture into this kind of advertisements, right? This is important. Losing customer base or misguiding them. All right, this is the crux of this. Have you looked at this ad? If you've not, you must look into it. Okay. Okay, you people understand that, Lanina. Okay, great. Let's look at some comments. Asim, so today I saw one thing for Sri Lanka. People, they were saying that they have money, but they can't buy things because it's not available, like petrol. Yeah. So Amlan says, foreign currency, they can't import. See, the local currency is of no value if they don't have the international currency for transactions. And that is why getting into currency swap agreements, right? So not only fuel, but then basic necessity items like milk powder, right? Like basic food items, all short. Okay. Asim says, but that was part wrong decision of the government, and people are suffering. How to keep check on government while taking decisions for investment? Yeah. Don't let Chinese invest in a way, right? Have sustainable investment policies, right? Where the government, incoming government, not only invest in the, see here it is Sri Lankan mistake. Contrary to what people understand, it is Chinese encroachment. It is actually Sri Lankan mistake. That's the revelation here. I read a couple of editorials on this, separate editorials. $1.2 billion provided by the Chinese Port Authority. It should have been given to the Chinese government back, right? Because 70% stakes for 99 years of lease were given to the Chinese Port Authority, and this money should have returned back to Chinese government, right? But then it actually went on to have more Sri Lankan imports. 2017, right? It went on to social spendings, revenue spendings, not capital investments. All right. This is what it is. This is a criminal attack on privacy. This is one of the editorials on the problems of Criminal Procedure Bill 2022. See, the Criminal Procedure Bill we have covered. There's an opinion on this saying that this is not something that should be done. Firstly, earlier law, it used to take in the measurements, fingerprints or certain details of the person only when there was a conviction of more than 1 year. Right now, the conviction, the people who have been arrested, not only convicted, arrested people or people under preventive detention, all of them will have to supply their measurements, and they will be taking all the forms of digital measurements, digital or physical measurements, their height, their fingerprints, their thumb impressions, their palm impression, their footprints, iris scan, biometrics, all the details would be taken of these persons. And it is not only about the taking in of measurements. The wordings are such that it says that the analysis is also available under it. Now, analysis puts more scrutiny than just taking in the measurements. For example, analysis can also be used to compare the data of anybody, facial recognition analysis. So this is something that is going beyond the mandate of a state, a limited state. Now it is more towards state surveillance. So this is where it says that these words have created some problem, right? It is going beyond. Not only this, as I mentioned, 1 year clause. That 1 year clause has been extended to person who has been imprisonment even for a day, and then retaining this for 75 years. If the person is found as a convict, it will be retained for 75 years, almost till the time the person is alive, right? Yes, in one case, in the case where the person has been acquitted, released by the court, after all the levels of appeal, if the person still is released, their data will be removed, right? So this is the only case. Otherwise, keeping the data for this long, this is another issue, right? And the third thing that they have said here, these are the three things. One is analysis, one is the measurements, and the third one is the 75 years clause. So these are the updates which the people find a little way beyond for state criminal acts on privacy. All right. Now, one issue that I have not discussed yet, it was in the news for a couple of days now. If you people have seen the image of this lady, doctor from Rajasthan, she recently committed suicide, and this is her letter acknowledging that she has not committed a mistake. This was a case of postpartum hemorrhage. Hemorrhage is loss of blood, and this is post birth. This is something that happens to females, right? And this is the one which because of which usually the maternal mortality rate is fixed. It is 100, 120, 130 at a particular place, decrease. So she had owned a hospital of her own since 2016, and there are Supreme Court orders on this, that in case you want to, so the case is such that since she has a hospital of her own and her husband, they would run the hospital, but there was some problem with the local politicians there, and because of which they were facing repeated issues. Now in this particular case, the person who was admitted for a pregnancy issue here, she admitted the person, and then the person was not in a good condition. She was just a 22-year-old lady who had already had 2 or 3 children, and it was the 3rd or 4th baby to come, and female children earlier, and this was that is the greed of local people to have sometimes male child. So then she was a part of the whole procedure. She accepted, and they could not save the child. The people who were the kith and kin of the lady who passed away, they didn't have as many complaints, but the local politician said, we'll make you seek more compensation, right? So they came back with the dead body, and then they started creating ruckus, and because of this, some extra pressure was added to the local police, and police lodged a case against the person, the doctor here, Dr. Archana, and because of the extreme pressure, she committed suicide. Now this is where an ethical question comes into play, and Supreme Court's judgment also is very, very substantial. Before lodging any case against an individual, a body of doctors must investigate if the doctor has been negligent in their duties, or was it a serious case and they accepted it, and even despite repeated attempts to save their life, they could not. So Supreme Court judgment says that one must get through the scrutiny of a doctor's committee, but then this was not applied. The case was resisted against this lady, and because of extreme pressures, she committed suicide. And this is all because the local politicians and all affecting. So this is an ethical issue. Should doctors accept those cases which are emergency in nature, those cases of serious casualties? Right, important. When we spoke of Charak Samhita, right, or when we speak of the issue of Hippocratic oath, was she following it or not? That's the question. Important. Moving ahead to the last section, but before that, if you like this initiative enough, share some love through likes, comments, and shares. All right. Case study of the day is on this lady who has been working at a crematorium as a crematorium worker. That's when we see, that's the time when we see that people working at crematoriums that were treated with stigma, and more so when it is a lady. I have never found a lady working at crematorium, but Selena in Kochi has been doing the same job, right? Sole bread earner for the family, difficult childhood, failed marriage, right? She had no lesser means for her survival, but then she needed something, and then here she is, right? So seeking, nobody can seek respect from the other person. It is always earned, right? It is nothing that can be demanded, and people earn it. So a person like Selena from Kochi has earned this. And how do we earn respect? We earn respect by just doing our jobs, our duty, every day's duty. That's what it is, right? So I respect you all in following your own duties here. Amnan says, and yes, we come to the conclusion of this discussion. And if there are questions, doubts, please post them on the comment section. I will get back to you people. So Kriti says, postpartum hemorrhage, the reason for nearly 40% maternal deaths. What is the MMR of in the country? It's around 100. So imagine this. Now this is something the doctors cannot avoid. The doctors also injected a couple of units of blood to her, but even despite, they could not save the lady. Right? At a young age, if we have multiple pregnancies, at 22nd age, if she had 4th pregnancy, and these are something that could be affecting the female's body. So Asim say, okay, diversity. Amnan says, diversify the investment is the solution. Yes, diversify the investment, and we should not be dependent on only one country to be our savior, right? So this is the reason that Sri Lanka now sees more, support from China. Why would they come to India? They should have gone to China. So it's a good opportunity for a country like India to gain goodwill from Sri Lankan government, right? So when the critical care units in the hospital stopped, Indian government said, we would help you, don't you worry. When they were 10 to 12 hour power cuts in Sri Lanka. Okay. So questions, please put them down. Let's get to the other video on the feature news. Thank you for participation. Great effort. See you in the feature news. Thank you.